Next News. Breaking news.
Tonight, the group that spent years smearing conservatives, parents, Christians, and America First voices as extremists is facing the kind of scrutiny it used to cheer for others. The Southern Poverty Law Center is now the center of a federal fraud case. President Trump is calling it one of the biggest political scams in American history. And the White House says this once famous organization has turned into a criminal operation run by fraudsters. But that's just the start, because the fallout is now hitting Capitol Hill, legacy media, and even big corporate names. The question is no longer whether the story matters. The question is how deep the rot really goes. And why should you care? Because this was never just about one left-wing nonprofit. This was a political weapon. For years, the SPLC helped shape who got labeled dangerous, who got censored, who got investigated, and who got shut out of public life. They targeted the Next News Network for years. And now House Republicans say the FBI relied on SPLC material in documents that painted traditional Catholics as possible violent extremists. Moms for Liberty says it landed on the SPLC hate map right after Ilhan Omar pushed for federal action against parents fighting woke indoctrination. Think about that. A partisan activist group brands normal Americans as threats, government agencies echo it, and the media repeats it as fact. That affects churches, schools, charities, speech, banking, and your family's reputation. Now, politically, this could blow open how the former Biden administration, Democrat activists, and their media allies built a whole machine around the white supremacy narrative while going after Trump supporters. If the allegations hold, and I hope they do, this was not civil rights work. It was a business model built on fear, smears, and donor cash. And speaking of fear, I'm going to take 10 seconds to talk about how the same panic machine works on your money. Noble Gold Investments understands something that the political class and Wall Street count on. Panic is profitable for them, not for you. You see, Wall Street doesn't lose money on sell-offs. You do. They create the panic, wait for you to dump your position out of fear, and scoop it up at a discount. The big banks aren't selling their gold, they're buying yours. And every time the headlines scream regular people sell, every time regular people sell, the institutions are right there waiting with open hands. You built portfolio insurance for a reason. Don't let a red day hand it over to the people who caused it. That's why I tell people to check out Noble Gold Investments. Visit nextnewsgold.com, and depending on the qualifying account, you could receive a free 10th ounce American Gold Eagle. Now back to the story the corporate press suddenly doesn't want to touch, and here's the twist that should make every viewer furious. Well, Democrats rush to defend the SPLC, and people like Chris Cuomo call the DOJ the bad guy. Major networks are barely covering the scandal at all. NBC, ABC, CBS are accused of near total silence. CNN is already framing the payments as part of an informant program. In other words, the same media ecosystem that pushed the Charlottesville lie and the white supremacy panic is trying to quarantine the story before it blows up the entire narrative. Now take a look at what President Trump posted on Truth Social at 1:13 in the morning. The Southern Poverty Law Center, one of the greatest political scams in American history, has been charged with fraud. This is another Democrat hoax, along with Act Blue and many others. If it is true, the 2020 presidential election should be permanently wiped from the books and be of no further force or effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Trump putting the SPLC on blast, tying it straight to the 2020 fight, amplifying that push by reposting Elon Musk. President Trump also reposting Elon Musk post on his Truth Social. Elon Musk said their scam worked for decades. President Trump amplifying Elon. And Elon was quote tweeting, "Flapper, we pay people to be racist so we can fight racism." The Southern Poverty Law Center, right? There it is. So after Trump boosting Musk, the White House took it a step further. Caroline Leavitt says the SPLC didn't just lose its way. She says it became a criminal operation run by fraudsters.
Right. The Southern Poverty Law Center was a very reputable organization at one point in time, and they have unfortunately transformed into a criminal organization run by fraudsters who are paying for and inciting this very racism that they claim to stand against. Now, you mentioned the Charlottesville hoax, John. It's a brilliant point because that is one of the most vicious and egregious smears that has been used against President Trump over the course of the past 11 years since he got himself into politics. And this group funded some of the funders of that hoax that not only the media ate up like candy, but that the Democrats ran campaigns on. If you recall, in 2020, Joe Biden launched his campaign for president on the basis of the Charlottesville hoax. It was a total lie, and it was funded by this organization that claims to stand against racism. I'm glad to see accountability is being had thanks to the Department of Justice. And I would like to criticize the legacy media. If you read articles about this case and this indictment in the New York Times, they're trying to claim that this is a weaponization of justice from the Trump DOJ. It couldn't be further from the truth. This was a grand jury indictment made up of Americans who realized that this organization was engaging in criminal activity, and they need to be held accountable for it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's music to my ears. Levitt connecting the case to the Charlottesville smear and the media machine that ran with it. Next up, a new question hits Apple and Tim Cook after old SPLC funding and a sudden resignation. Amuse posting hate hoax. Apple CEO Tim Cook funded the SPLC for nearly a decade. The SPLC used the money to fund KKK neo-Nazi leaders. The DOJ announced indictments. Cook resigned the day before. Hat tip to the ripcord. This is what he posted. Apple SPLC cash funded KKK's Nazis. Cook resigned the day before. Tim Cook personally committed Apple's financial backing to the SPLC nearly 10 years ago. Armed with Apple's endorsement and money, the Democrat-aligned NGO began funding leaders of the KKK and neo-Nazi hate groups. Cook resigned as Apple CEO the day before the DOJ unsealed SPLC indictments. Apple's most consequential donation bought a hate group a decade of impunity. Connect the dots. Tim Cook of Apple announced he was stepping down as CEO the day before the SPLC announcement. Following the 2017 Charlottesville incident, Apple and CEO Tim Cook pledged $1 million each to the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL. The Tim Cook timeline is raising eyebrows for good reason. Now, House Republicans are zeroing in on another SPLC smear after Catholics were branded violent extremists.
The House Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to the Southern Poverty Law Center requesting documents on any communication and coordination between the group and the Biden administration. Now, in that letter, the committee claims the FBI had at least 13 documents, including a memo that labeled traditional Catholics as violent extremists. That memo, according to the committee, cited material from the SPLC. This after a 2023 report from that same House committee found that the SPLC identified Christian identity as a hate group.
Oh, it makes me so sick to my stomach. Even knowing that my name, my YouTube channel listed all over their websites, used by the media to smear me. And then we have Chris Cuomo melting down over the DOJ case. Fredo is freaking out, guys.
Southern Poverty Law Center is paying the KKK. That's bullshit. Here's the real question. Why would you go after somebody who's fighting extremist groups?
Oh, my God.
What do you want, extremist groups to flourish? You want to go after one of the main places that checks them? Chris, how you doing? So, New York City. That's my question, is why are they going after the Southern Poverty Law Center? Seriously, you want to help the KKK? They're paying informants for information about toxic organizations so they can find ways to infiltrate and fight against what they're trying to do. Who wants to make it easier for the bad guys? What is this lawsuit about? What a waste of our tax dollars. But more importantly, what a demonstration of being about something that's wrong, trying to help the bad guys. This is a bullshit lawsuit. But what's more scary is why they're bringing it.
Oh, yeah, really, Chris? Maybe you missed the line in the indictment that said that they paid the Unite the Right guy like $270,000. The guy who was the lead organizer, who then explained that the SPLC was helping him write social media posts. $270,000. That buys a hell of a lot of tiki torches, Chris. Unbelievable. But I expect nothing less from Fredo. Remember, he got his ass canned from CNN because he was helping his brother during COVID. Oh, man, that's a whole nother story. So Cuomo says going after the SPLC somehow helps the bad guys, but the next clip shows how this kind of labeling hit everyday parents too, with Moms for Liberty thrown on the SPLC hate map after Ilhan Omar turned up the heat. May 2023. Ilhan Omar calls Moms for Liberty moms for dictatorship and suggests federal action against moms who oppose woke indoctrination in K-12 groups, classrooms. June 2023, the Southern Poverty Law Center puts us on a hate map with the designation anti-government extremist organization. Coincidence? That's Scarlett Johnson making that post. Listen.
Organizations like Moms for Liberty, I call them moms for dictatorship, for disrespect, for disinformation, for abuse, for harassment, for bullying, because many of the things that they are advocating for is to create an environment where a lot of our kids feel intimidated, a lot of our kids feel as if they are not living in an open,
I can only take so much of that one. She belongs to either deported or behind bars. So the pattern: smear the moms, slap on the extremist label. Now the corporate media circling the wagons with the networks downplaying the scandal, cable outlets attacking the DOJ instead. Wall Street Apes writes, this is actually insane. News segment reveals how other news broadcasters are covering the Southern Poverty Law Center scandal. NBC Nightly News, ABC World News Tonight, CBS Evening News all have no interest in covering the store. Formerly MS Now, formerly MSNBC, says it's not the SPLC that's on the side of racism. It's those investigating the SPLC. Okay, let's take a look at this this segment here.
Just Joe Biden, it was members of his administration warning us then, as an extrapolation, that the greatest threat to national security was white supremacy.
The top domestic violent extremist threat we face comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race.
Now, you would think with that narrative driving the media in almost every piece of coverage and driving the prior administration that now this new revelation would be, in turn, all over the media. But no. Take a look at what's happening. Right now, NBC Nightly News, ABC World News Tonight, CBS Evening News, pass, no interest, despite the timing, despite the scale. And if you even turn over now to MS Now, that's formerly MSNBC, it's not the SPLC that's on the side of racism. It's actually those investigating the SPLC. It's the DOJ.
It is. They've gone after the Southern Poverty Law Center, but not the KKK. They've gone after the people, the civil rights organizations, but not the actual extremist groups.
They just freed the Proud Boys. What do you expect?
What do you expect, right? The blackout tells you everything about who's protecting the machine. Mario Nafal lays out how the Biden White House and DOJ leaned on the SPLC with this post featuring Jesse Waters. The Trump 2020 election should be wiped from the books permanently. It's about to get messy.
Biden's DOJ partnered with the SPLC, then turned around and cited them to say white supremacy was the biggest threat to the country. But then the banks flagged the fraud to the feds, and the Biden White House shut down the investigation. Because what else would Kamala have to run on?
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Just a few months ago, Jamie Raskin singing their praises.
Yep, that's what they do. The SPLC, supposed watchdogs against hate, accidentally became a piggy bank for white supremacists to the tune of $3 million. The Biden DOJ's response was to pretend it wasn't happening. Oh, this skit here really sums it up. I don't know who made it. It feels like something I might see from the Babylon Bee or something like that. But it's a skit from 2021. Prescient of the Southern Poverty Law Center manufacturing fake bigotry in order to blame the right and target political enemies. The demand exceeded the supply. So this clip, if you've never seen it before, it's been circulating today. It's just about 2 minutes, and I think you'll find it to be rather amusing.
And I'm Ron, and we are members of Antifa. But what you don't know is that we're also the founders of Not Antifa Window Repair. If you ever need window repair, I got a bit of a suspicion you will, so we realized that by living this double life, we were able to create the demand for our own services.
We organize and cause riots, which then cause damage that creates customers.
Then we take our costumes off, Clark Kent style, and show up first on the scene to get the business. Some bad people out there, so...
You know, stuff happens, stuff's going to happen. Capitalism by day, communism by night.
Ooh, that's a nice... You know, we saw the media and corporations all benefiting from the protests, and we thought, you know, why not us?
Break us off some of those protest dollars. Put a rock through this window, put a rock on my wife's hand.
Put my kids through college. You know, some say Antifa's just an idea, but to me, it's $1 billion idea. You think that guy's gonna break that?
Nah, probably just a window shopper.
Do you want to put this on the Tuesday protest or the Thursday?
Yeah, Tuesday protest. Single pane, too. See, they cheaped out.
Yeah, the window repair game's a little like the tow truck game. You know, you want to be first on the scene.
Yeah, and it helps to know where that scene's gonna be, if you catch my drift.
We usually come a couple hours before the unrest and take these bad boys down.
Yeah, we weren't born yesterday, Target. People are cooped up with no stimulus. It's easy to get them riled up.
But also, because they're cooped up, they more than ever need windows. Corporate money right there.
Big time.
Kind of like how the government shut down businesses, forcing you to rely on them. We break windows, forcing you to rely on us.
Tensions have died down without the bad man in power, so we've had to work a little harder on the activism side.
Sometimes when we really want to up the ante, we'll utilize multiple movements. On them, we're stopping global warming by breaking the windows on 2nd Street tonight.
Breaking the system starts with the windows. Racial tension's really good for business. You think you can smash us with a standard hammer, or you think you need a diamond tip? Yeah, we're just gonna meet at 2nd Street, march up to 3rd, and just hit everything on that whole block.
And we're actually thinking about moving to Portland. There's a lot of money to be made in window repair.
Yeah, I read a statistic. 44% of all windows in Portland are currently broken. What are you thinking? Think we can get a rock all the way up there?
Pull the right crew together?
I mean, that's basically Southern Poverty Law Center right there. Nailing the racket, manufacture the problem, cash in on the cleanup. And now we have Ted Lieu. Yeah, Senator Ted Lieu. He says this is one of the stupidest DOJ cases in history. Southern Poverty Law Center wasn't paying the Klan. They were paying informants who were helping to take down the Klan. Unless you believe white supremacists all of a sudden took over the SPLC, this entire case makes no sense. And he then decided to post a clip that we've been playing here of Kash Patel announcing this on Fox News.
Doesn't lie. The charity that supposedly fought the Klan funded the Klan. The charity that supposedly fought neo-Nazis funded neo-Nazis. The Southern Poverty Law Center ran a methodical, calculated scheme to defraud their donor base of $3 million and lied to them and used an illicit banking structure system to create shell companies to hide their money and who it was being sent to, specifically for the reason to sow discord and hate into our society. This is the...
Now, he's trying to wave this away, some misunderstanding about informants, but James Bradley answers the charge at the center of the case: shell companies, hidden payments, and a business model built on fear. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ted Lieu, the California clown, the perfect spokesman for smearing manufacturing lies and profiting off it. He just called this one of the stupidest DOJ cases in history, claiming the SPLC wasn't paying the Klan. They were just paying informants to take him down. Clown. The DOJ indicted the SPLC for funneling over $3 million donor dollars straight to actual KKK leaders, Aryan Nations organizers, and neo-Nazi figures using shell companies and prepaid cards to hide it. You didn't fight hate, you manufactured it, laundered it, scared donors into writing bigger checks, then cried stupid when you got caught. This isn't fighting hate, this is your business model. Senator Mike Lee. SPLC paid to foment the hatred that SPLC got paid to fight. Arsonists masquerading as firefighters. Quote tweeting the press secretary Caroline Levitt, Charlottesville. She posted this article, Charlottesville, the deceit underlying the hoax. New York Post, Trump calls for 2020 presidential election to be permanently wiped from the books of Southern Poverty Law Center convicted of fraud. So Trump's call is forcing the scandal into the national conversation. The money trail widens with claims USAID cash flowed through the Tides network into an SPLC voter project. Bad Hombre posting this, going viral today. Incredible. USAID was funding the SPLC through an organization called the Tides Center based in San Francisco. From 2016 through 2024, USAID granted $27 million to the Tides network to strengthen global civil society organizations, promote transparency, accountability, citizen engagement, and serve as a fiscal agent for USAID's Civil Society Innovation Initiative. The Tides Center set up a fund through its Tides Foundation with that money for the Southern Poverty Law Center's Vote Your Voice initiative. The executive director of the Tides Center is Aisha Khanna. She was the co-chair of Women for Obama in Atlanta, Georgia. Taxpayer-linked money touching the operation. The scandal gets dirtier. Megan Bashan says the SPLC didn't stop there, argues funded legacy media outlets that helped sell the narrative. Listen to this. Megan Bashan, it's important to know that the Southern Poverty Law Center does not just fund hate groups, it also funds legacy media outlets like the Texas Tribune. So it spends donor money on getting protesters to racist rallies and funds news outlets who will report on racist rallies and praise SPLC for their work combating the problem racists. Do you get how this works now? And she thanks Damon Otel for reminding her. Wow. So the same group accused of stirring the fire may have been paying the people covering the smoke. Next, civil rights activist Bob Woodson warns the indictment is only the tip of the iceberg.
Bob Woodson is founder and president of the Woodson Center and a civil rights activist. Bob, I find this information, and it is allegations from the DOJ, but I find this information absolutely eye-opening. It is proving true the adage that there is a greater demand for racism than there is supply of racism, and a group like the Southern Poverty Law Center has taken that into their own hands to fund the supply.
First of all, I think I am not surprised at all. This is just a more obvious expression of the contradiction of people who say they're fighting for civil rights, and as a consequence, they are corrupt. This is just the tip of the iceberg, that people who are supposed to be fighting for civil rights. For example, over the past 50 years, we've spent about $25 trillion on programs of aid to the poor, where 70% of it goes not to the poor, but to people like this. They ask which problems are fundable, not which ones are solvable. And so you get this kind of corruption that you're witnessing, but it's much more insidious than that. For instance, the civil rights organizations filed a lawsuit in support of human rights campaign against Catholic Charities because they refused to place children in same-sex homes. So the NAACP Urban League filed an amicus brief in support of that, and as a consequence, Catholic Charities shut down the adoption agency, which means thousands of black kids are going to be left without homes. So this whole grievance emphasis and greed on the part of the former civil rights organizations is much more insidious than what you're witnessing here.
Much more insidious. Not an isolated case. It's a whole grievance industry feeding on division. David Marcus brings it back to one of the biggest lies pushed against Trump, the very fine people hoax. Trump never called the white supremacists very fine people, but it turns out the SPLC was handing them bags of cash. Sean Farash, the NAACP, is now defending the people, quite literally, who funded the KKK. What a time to be alive. NAACP, the DOJ's indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center, is a chilling attack on civil rights advocacy. Trump's DOJ has been weaponized by dangerous forces. Every organization and individual engaged in social justice should be alarmed. And then we have this, the House panel now ordering the Southern Poverty Law Center from Zero Hedge to turn over communications with the Biden DOJ. CNN running cover for the Southern Poverty Law Center by saying, well, I'll let you hear from them directly here.
I've never seen a case quite like this. Here, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a nonprofit civil rights group, was indicted on federal fraud charges. Now, the Justice Department is alleging that this group gave money to informants who then infiltrated groups affiliated with the KKK or the Nazis, for example. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center said it did have an informant program for a time, and they used it to monitor threats and often share what they learned with law enforcement. But the crux of the federal case argues that they were fundraising off of a promise to dismantle hate groups, and then they would turn around and give money to those same groups. And they're arguing that was part of this alleged fraud. But in a statement, the Southern Poverty Law Center defends its work, saying taking on violent hate and extremist groups is among the most dangerous work there is, and we believe it is also among the most important work we do. To be clear, this program saved lives.
Oh yeah.
During a press conference Tuesday, the acting attorney.
What about that poor girl who died in Charlottesville? It saved lives. Imagine if they didn't send $270,000 to the organizer. Yeah. Think about that. Think about that for just a moment. Then we'll go back to connecting the dots. Tim Cook of Apple announced he was stepping down as CEO the day before, following the 2017 Charlottesville incident. Apple CEO Tim Cook pledged $1 million to each Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL. Caroline Levitt, her post, the deceit underlying the hoax. Oh, man. So this is the moment. The real scandal is not just that the SPLC is accused of funneling money to the very monsters they claim to oppose. It's that the left may have built an entire political industry by feeding hate, packaging outrage, smearing decent Americans, and then billing donors and taxpayers to fight the chaos they helped create. Senator Mike Lee nailed it. Arsonists masquerading as firefighters. That's why President Trump's response hit so hard. If one of the core engines behind the 2020 fear campaign was fraudulent, then one of the left's central moral weapons against Trump and his supporters collapses right in front of the country. Once that happens, everything tied to it comes under fresh suspicion. The Southern Poverty Law Center spent years acting like judge, jury, and executioner over who counted as acceptable in America. Now the spotlight's on them. And the people who use their labels as political ammunition, they're scrambling. House Republicans want records. The Trump White House is drawing a line. The media are ducking, and Americans are finally seeing how the smear machine may have worked from inside out. This is why independent outlets matter. And yes, this is personal for us. Because groups like this help target voices like Next News for years. Not anymore. Share this report everywhere. Drop a comment below. Answer the simple yes or no question. Should the SPLC lose its nonprofit status immediately if these allegations are proven true? Text raw feed to 844-840-4963 so you can bypass big tech suppression and get direct updates to your phone from me. Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. I'm fired up because America's fighting back and the hoax factories are finally being exposed.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.